Hi, Belle. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Rebecca, for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm so excited to have you here today on the podcast. You started out in corporate for a couple of years and you went on an amazing journey a little bit over a year ago with Musicasa. So, starting with the beginning, can you tell me about some of the experiences you had for those who don't know you before you started
Okay.
the company and how did you get to the point where you started your company?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So I have a 10 plus year career in advertising marketing, in the marketing and the advertisings of the world. I did that since I graduated college until 2.5 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. And basically I worked at global, regional and local agencies in New York City, in Puerto Rico. And think about it as I was in strategy and client services, and I was managing larger than life brands. So I had the opportunity to work with the beauty brands and home care brands for Procter and Gamble, for example, for the US Hispanic market in the US. I then went to Puerto Rico and I worked for the number one beer on the island that everyone dreams about, working with, which is Medalla. And that really sort of like gave me the foundation for guerrilla marketing, which I hadn't learned in my time in New York because everything was so structured, corporate like, right? I remember the first week that I started my job at Gray, I had to learn dictionary of acronyms for Procter and Gamble, and I think there were more than 150 items that I needed to memorize, which was crazy to me. But Procter and Gamble set the stage for a lot of the advertising today, so that sort of like really gave the sturdiness and the structure that I needed as a professional. And then I ended up working at another global agency called BBDO, where I managed Bacardi and Hyundai and some of my favorite food brands or candy bars, which are Snickers and M&Ms and Twix, all the way to Pedigree. And that sort of like really gave me the global and regional access and knowledge and scalability of the importance of seeing the world just outside of your bubble and outside of where you're living at in that moment. So for them, I managed the Central America and Caribbean Puerto Rico business, which was huge. So I have to say that in my 10 years of career, I really had a lot of exposure and a lot of access to brands that people really dream of working with.
Definitely. What do you think is the biggest learnings from there that you today find useful as an entrepreneur?
The first one is structure and processes. I think that working in agencies that are part of a larger conglomerate really gives you I'm going to say foundation again, but the foundation, the tools, the resources that you need to really be able to manage a business. Because when you're an advertising agency, you're managing their marketing and communications and creativity. And you're managing, as lead creative agency, you're managing other disciplines within those realms, which are media, public relations, experiential. So all of a sudden you become the go-to person for all these agencies all over the US. And for that, you need processes and you need resources and you need structure. And I think that's sort of like the biggest thing that I've been able to bring with me as I've grown and navigated my career from agency to agency and now as an entrepreneur. The second thing is consistency. The biggest secret for these brands' successes is not that one's more talented than the other. It's not that one is more yummy than the other, whether those are true or not in different categories. The reason why these brands are so successful are because they're consistent. Let's think about Snickers, for example. Snickers has been targeting and talking about hunger since its very beginning, since its conception, and they've been adamant about it. So what do people identify Snickers with? With hunger. And I think that the more consistent brands are in how they talk and how they present themselves, the more success they're going to have, because they're showing up every day, because they're being intentional with the message that they're putting out there. And that's one of the biggest things that I would have to say has been a secret of mine for the past year. I've been consistent in showing up. I don't always have all the answers. I don't always know where I need to go or how I need to get there, but I've been here. I've been asking, I've been pivoting, and people see that. I see that. And that sort of like really gives you the self-confidence that you need to continue moving forward. And I would say that last but not least is taking calculated risks. And many of these brands really trusted us and gave us the necessary push that we needed in order to innovate, in order to think outside the box, in order to really bring creativity forward and drive connection with our consumers and our audiences in different ways. And that requires trust. And When you build that trust, the more calculated risks you can take and the more that people are going to respond to that. So I think that the combination of those two, because taking risks, specifically when you're managing someone else's money and not your money, requires a lot of rapport and trust. And let me take it back to the human connection component, which is such a big part of my life. You need to connect with people at a human level. Beyond Snickers, who are the people that are managing the brands? Are people. And we all come with our fears and anxieties and ways of doing business. And the more that you can integrate them, the more success that you're going to see as a result. And I think that having all those things that I just mentioned in place really gives you the space to flow, the space to navigate and create and test things that you would never have done if you didn't have those set in place already. So, and last but not least, fun. Like, we need to have fun and we need to laugh. And I think that the more fun that you can have, the more the other things can transform. But yeah, a lot of those things need to work in tandem in order for big things to happen.
How did you come from that space of being able to do and create all the things that you've done for these big brands to the point where you decided to leave all that behind and create something for yourself? So what prompted you to leave all that, and how did you make that decision? And tell me more about how did that happen?
I didn't feel I was reaching my full potential. I felt that there was something missing. I had everything that you can think of from a material point of view. I was 28, 29 years old, and I was already a group account director, and I was being trained to lead the team as a whole in the agency. And I was working in new business, and I was working in the culture component of the operations. And I just felt completely disconnected. I felt disconnected from myself. I felt disconnected from others. I have to add the Hurricane Maria had just happened in Puerto Rico, and that really shook me. And to be completely transparent, I had an emotional burnout. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't continue playing the politics that involves being in corporate, especially when you have a high level position. I just couldn't navigate it anymore. I didn't have the patience, or more than that, the energy, because I felt disconnected and I didn't feel fulfilled. And it's no one's fault. I think I gave my heart and soul to this industry for 10 years. That's 10 plus years. And it got to the point where it got out of control. And I had to put alarm clocks in my phone to remind myself that I needed to go home and not continue working. At one point, I was managing 13 or 14 brands at the same time with a team of 3 people. It wasn't sustainable long term. And I needed to get out of my bubble. And I needed to understand what Bea was made of outside of this world, because I had no idea.
And how did you find that story? So you moved to Miami.
So Miami is now. Like Miami, I just moved in July. But think about that happened in May 2018. So when that happens in May 2018, I decide to sell everything. Clothing, my shoes, I sold my car. I want to meet people outside of the advertising world. I want to meet people outside of Puerto Rico. I need to understand where else my skill sets can add value. I needed to understand what was Bea made of beyond being a great communicator and a great advertiser. And I wanted to see the world. I originally was going to go for like 3 months. My trip became a 10-month trip. And the goal was to get my bank account to zero.
Wow.
And
where did you go?
I went to every continent except Antarctica. I did 6 months solo, and 4 months I did with a company called Unsettled. So they curate groups of 20, 25 people from all over the world that are in the same boat as you in terms of like, they're looking to find meaning somewhere else. They're looking to redefine their careers. They just left the corporate world and want to reinvent themselves. So you have people working remotely that work at corporate jobs. So I call it my MBA without having had to pay the big institutional money that usually goes into an MBA. But globally, I went from giving salsa lessons in the Amazon in Peru to providing strategic and community building strategic workshops in Bali for people that were starting their own businesses. I worked for marketing for a non-for-profit organization in Bangkok, Thailand, for a Women Empowerment Foundation. I trained for my first marathon and trained in 15 countries. I mean, the amount of things I tracked, Mount Etna in Sicily, 3.5 weeks in the Cusco region in Peru, the amount of things that I was able to do from an adventure point of view, but also from a professional and personal growth development point of view was fascinating. But it's because I chose to do it that way. I met my first global client in Italy, and they were from Romania, and I helped build the entire strategic structure for a program they just launched a couple months ago for the Europe region, which never in a million years I would have been able to do if it wasn't because I decided to do that. So it really gave me a small view of what I was capable of and what was Bea outside of advertising, because my entire worth until that point was tied to my career.
And so during those travels, you found yourself, you would say. And how did you come up with the idea of Musicasa? How did that happen?
I wouldn't say I found myself. I would say I reconnected with myself. I was able to really tap into who I was before all the pressures and all the expectations that I set on myself and the other people set on me. So I would have to say that the Musicasa journey started in August of 2018 without me knowing. So in that trip, we did an exercise called Ikigai. And Ikigai is this idea that if you live with your purpose, you're going to have a very fulfilling, happy, long life. And the Ikigai comes from a little island in Japan, which has one of the highest percentages of people that live above 100 years. And they found out that it was because they lived their Ikigai. So Ikigai combines the things you love with the things that will need, with the things that you can get paid for, with the things that you're really good at. So when you start merging all of those things, you start finding what your passion is, what your mission, what your vocation is, etc., etc. So when you are doing the exercise, you find out that there are things that are repeating themselves to the point when you get to the circle, there's one thing that repeated itself in its entirety, and that's your Ikigai, that's your purpose. So your life's mission is to find how you can bring that purpose to life. And my whole purpose is to spark joy and enable human connection. That's always been my purpose. I just put it under the rug for a long time in my life. And Musicasa is exactly that. So Musicasa is a platform that sparks joy and enables human connection through music. So for me, Musicasa is really an extension of who I am, because it combines the three things that I love the most: my Latin roots, my love for music, and my love for connecting with people. And it's all integrated into one.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how does it work? And
Yes.
You've been around for over a year now. So
Yes.
where you are now, and what can we know about you?
So Musicasa was born a year ago, and it originally was born as a way to connect music lovers with emerging undiscovered artists in very intimate spaces, through very intimate experiences at people's homes. And we started focusing only on Latin musicians to gain more exposure, to build a new fan base, or connect more intentionally and meaningfully with the fans that they already have, and to really give them a new way to monetize their art. The economy of the future is the sharing economy, is the passion economy, and is going back to village tribe-like ecosystems in which the more that you combine knowledge, the more that you combine resources, the further you can go and the more you can live. So it was originally born like that, and it was really exciting for me because, like I said before, I love connecting with people. So it was a great way to connect and meet new people that I didn't know in a new city that I was living in Palo Alto / San Francisco. And it also helped me discover new musicians through my hobby, which is live music. So we started as that, and then all of a sudden I started getting messages from people like, when are you coming to New York? When are you coming to Puerto Rico? You need to come to LA. And I'm like, well, okay, let's do it. And long story short, pandemic hit, and then that's when we decided to go 100% virtual, but maintaining the pillars of Musicasa, which are community, celebration, and culture, and doing it in a way that people could still connect visually and through audio and through chat, and have a specific time of the night or of the week that you could decompress and have a one-on-one at a level that you feel comfortable at. So that's how we started. The vision has grown way bigger, and we're now building the first live music platform on demand. And this is big because it doesn't exist. This is big because human connection is going to be in the front and center of the product that we're going to build. We're changing the way that the music business is run. We're changing the way in which the music business it gives access to. And by helping this 91% of musicians that will never be discovered, we're giving a chance to millions of musicians to really expose themselves in ways that they had never thought before.
I love this idea. But you're also planning to keep the in-person experience whenever it's safe to do so, right?
Absolutely. And we've started exploring and testing in-person experiences here in Miami, where I'm located, just to see what's the response, just to see if people are willing to participate. And all of our concerts in Miami have been sold out. I think with the exception of one, we're just 2 tickets missing for it to be sold out. And it tells you that people are craving that human connection and that socialization. So the fact that we were able to find a way virtually to do that speaks volumes of what people are looking for right now. I always say that Musicasa is more than a tech company or more than a music company. We're really a human connection company. And we're using music as that social lubricant, as that connector for people to come together and connect in ways that they're not doing right now, and to connect with people outside of their network. For me, this is huge for musicians because it gives them a platform in which they can learn where else their music it's listened to, it's liked. Virtually, they don't have to only play at Puerto Rico. They can be playing from their home, and you have audiences from Brazil and Malaysia, for that matter, which we had someone from Malaysia in two of our concerts. So it breaks all geographical barriers to the point where we're opening doors for you in places that you never would have imagined that you were capable of playing at, and you are, regardless if it's virtual.
The whole world opens up at the same time, but in a way it's closing down. So how do you see the next few years? Because hopefully we'll have a vaccine soon, and hopefully we'll have a new reality, new normal.
You know, I'm someone that doesn't like to predict the future. I'm someone that very much likes to listen and respond to what consumers are asking for. First and foremost, it will be listening to our music lovers and to our musicians. They will dictate a lot of what happens with Musicasa in the next 5 years, because what's needed today is not necessarily what's going to be needed in 5 years. And we don't know what that's going to be. So it wouldn't be fair to me to try to build something that's not really what people are looking for. What I would say is this: we are fully committed to having human connection be our true north. We're fully committed to transform how live music and streaming shows up in the world. And we are fully committed to do it in a way where everyone is capable of building community. From there, anything is possible, right? But I would say that those are our biggest commitments that we have for the future of Musicasa. We have a database of more than 120 musicians, and I know everyone's first and last name, everyone's genre, everyone's story, because for me, it's really important to build a foundation of trust, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to scale the business in the way that we're envisioning it. Musicians come from a mindset of distrust. Why? Because they've been used and abused for so long. The business model in the music industry does not benefit the creator, does not benefit the talent. So for them, it's really hard to trust someone, to have their best interests at heart. And for me, that's one of my main drivers. So in order to do that, you need to build those relationships. You need to nurture them. So that's when I say that we're building community from the foundation up. We have community calls with them where they get to participate in what we're creating. So we have first access to their needs, to their challenges, to their worries. And that has really made the difference.
I love the vision. And also like remembering everybody's name as well.
I think it's really important that you talk to people with their first name, that they feel seen and heard. I come from an industry that we didn't necessarily separate a time to see and hear people. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be understood. If you don't do all those three things, you're not going to have a connection with someone. So that's something that I've really, really sort of like honed in and worked on myself and really instilled in others, because it's the foundation of every business is human beings. If we're not nurtured, the company's not going to be nurtured.
Exactly. And do you have some tips on like how to, remember all the names?
I usually try to associate the names with things or songs or movies or pop culture things that would take me back to remembering that person. Also, I think really musically. So I try to connect with them on a music level too, to understand if there are any similarities. That way it's like, oh, that's Carlos, the Bon Jovi guy. And I make that association, and that really simplifies it.
And where does your love for music come from?
De que soy Latina, I'm Latina. I don't know if it's because I'm Latina and Caribbean, but it's always been there. I feel like it's, since I have memory, I've been curating music or listening to music. I remember the first time I heard Billy Joel with my dad. Me and my dad would take rides in his car and play this Diego Torres Unplugged MTV CD. And we would drive for hours just to sing the entire CD, like top volume, because I don't know how to listen to music if it's not on high volume. And I remember the first time I heard Selena. My first concert was Laura Pausini and then Chayanne. My mother loves music, loves dancing. My dad as well. So I can't sing. I don't play instruments, even though they try to convince me to do so, but I've just been really exposed to it. And we come from an island that, there's no data to show this, but I can cut my head and say that we're one of the biggest exporters of music and global talent in the world, regardless of what the genre is. And music plays a big, big role in people's lives in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting to think about it that way. And I love how you were brought up with it with your mom and dad as well. Shifting gears, what are the difficulties that you're facing? And how do you overcome whatever life throws at you?
The first big challenge that I had was with myself. I was my biggest enemy. And I was my biggest barrier. I'm a dreamer. I'm a visionary because I see possibilities everywhere. It's just how my brain works. I just lacked the self-confidence that I needed to pursue things in a committed way, in a consistent way. Before that, I had many, many ideas that I just never pursued. So for me, it was really shifting gears from a mindset point of view of not letting fear paralyze me. In that moment in time with Musicasa was born, I was working with a financial coach because one of the things that I worked in my 2019 plan was my relationship with money. And one of the things that she really helped me with was understanding who I am what are my strengths and my weaknesses, like my light and my dark shadows within who I am, and how I needed to use those to my advantage. And one of the things that we discovered together was that I'm a connector, first and foremost. And as a connector, you need to find financial freedom through your relationships and nurturing those relationships. And to me, I was great at making money for other people. I couldn't charge people what my worth is, because I would feel bad that they would think that I was taking advantage of them because they're my friends or they're like a person that I respect. And she was like, but that's your biggest asset. The way that you find that financial freedom is through your relationships and through your connection. You have the capacity, you have the knowledge, you have the resume to back it up. And then second, what we found is that I'm a visionary. I'm an idealist. So I would really get stuck in the details of something instead of trying to sell the idea and then find people that would help me execute it. And once I was able to transition from that and really understand where my value asset was beyond the hard skill sets, that's when things really started shifting for me. So I would say that first and foremost, I was my biggest challenge. And I think that I'm super demanding on myself, and that can be to the point where it was detrimental. I wouldn't move. It paralyzed me. So she really taught me that fear is just unintegrated excitement. That moment that something that you fear becomes excitement, no one can stop you. So I really, really, really did the work on my shadows. And the second thing was that I was someone that was always looking for external validation. If I didn't have the external validation, I wouldn't do it. When in reality, the only validation that I need is within myself. And then last but not least, of course, capital and money, right? I was coming from a trip where I had spent all my money. I was trying to create something from nothing, in the sense that I didn't come from the music industry. I hadn't done an MBA or a master's, things that you think are necessary for you to become an entrepreneur. Once the capital thing, the fear with money and my relationship with money got to a place where I felt comfortable with it, things started really shifting for me.
Yeah, definitely. And as well to, being able to take the leap and the courage and start something and build something on your own.
It takes a lot of courage, which is something that I have to admit I don't lack. I've always been very courageous in my life, and I have to thank my parents for that, because they gave me the structure that I needed to be courageous. You need to be very grounded to do something like this, which I wasn't when I started. I didn't feel grounded at all. But I knew in my heart that there was something big in Musicasa that we needed to explore. I don't know what Musicasa is going to look like in 2 years, in 3 years. I have a dream, I have a vision. I know what are the steps to take to do that vision. I don't have all the details, but I know how to get there, right? I really try to detach from any outcome, from any person, from any expectation, to diminish the amount of suffering that could come if something doesn't happen the way that I need it to happen, and to really give it the space and the freedom for it to happen how it needs to happen. And last but not least, it takes a village. Without my family, without my friends, without the community that I surround myself with, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today, to be quite honest. There were many times during the 2020 year that I was about to quit, that I applied for full-time jobs because I was desperate, because I need to pay bills. Life comes knocking at you and it really tests you. And you need to have people that are in your ear being like, you can do this, you got this, your vision matters, what you're doing matters. Look, people that celebrate you and celebrate with you. Because as entrepreneurs, especially, I was a solo founder for a long time, and I wouldn't celebrate myself. I would be like, oh, that's cool. Okay, next. And that can really take a toll. That's why I was saying we need to have fun.
Exactly. It's important to celebrate some of the wins that you have along the way, even though some of them, are smaller wins. You can't always win the biggest prize you're aiming for, but you have to find as well along the way what you're successful at and what you achieve. I think it's important to recognize it and take the time and say, okay, I've done this. I did it.
I have to share this. So when the pandemic started in March, I was locked down with my best friend and her fiance, who was also an entrepreneur for the company Unsettled that I was talking about. And we have a tambourine, a pandereta. So every time that something big would happen for Musicasa, because at that point I was like starting to do virtual to see if it worked, like a musician would say yes to me, and I would take the pandereta and I was like, what? Every single time. And that brought a lot of joy, and that brought a lot of hope to where we were, because those were desperate times. We didn't know what we know today about coronavirus. So even if it was just once a day, even if it drove them crazy sometimes, it really lit up the energy and lit up the joy that we could feel if we allowed ourselves to feel it.
And do you know anything now that you wish you knew when you started your business or even your career?
It's so many things.
The main thing. Most important thing.
That I don't have to do it alone. For me, it's really hard to ask for help for different reasons. But I felt that asking for help meant that I was less, meant that I wasn't smart enough, meant that I didn't study enough, and so forth. And, I needed to admit to myself that I couldn't continue the pace that I was running Musicasa in April, for example, because I was going to burn out again. I mean, doing 47 concerts in 30 days is a lot, and it's a lot of work. And I was doing everything, like everything that you see in social media, everything that you see in the website. In that moment in time, it was all me, everything, all the outreach, all the scheduling, all the sound checks, all the concerts. Like I hosted 96 virtual concerts. That's an hour that you have to be there, committed, managing the energy of the crew, making sure that no one's unmuting themselves, and the logistics that go with it. And it was in the moment that I asked for help that everything started falling into place, from attracting the right talent, my co-founder, for example, attracting my CFO, which is my brother, creating the financial model, building the second investor deck, bringing in a series of people that really propelled me forward to the point that I'm, again, here sitting with you, thanks to Mara. So it takes a village, and we need to ask for help. We can't do it alone.
Yeah, exactly. And you are not alone. Definitely not alone.
I'm definitely not alone.
And what are you most proud of so far?
I would have to say that I'm most proud of my determination and my perseverance. The reason why I say that, it's because without it, I would have quit a long time ago. And without it, I wouldn't be seeing the magic that I'm seeing today. And I wouldn't have been able to help impact people's lives in the way that we're impacting right now. So I'm really proud of the fact that I'm still here, and that I'm able to work with people that really believe in the vision, believe in me, and that want to not only see me succeed, but see everyone that's involved with Musicasa succeed. And, I think it takes a lot of work to magnetize and attract the right kind of people to your life. And that takes determination, and that takes perseverance.
Exactly. And so what does success mean to you?
Success? Oof, that's a deep question. You know what? Success for me it's a daily work. It's something that you choose. It's like happiness. You choose to be happy, right? I think that success, you decide every day what success means. Like maybe success for me tomorrow is waking up, getting out of bed and doing yoga, because that's what my entire body asks of me today. So I think that success is a combination of listening to yourself and honoring what your body and mind and soul are telling you, and doing things that bring joy and fulfillment to you. Some of the things that bring joy to me is dancing. I dance every day. It doesn't matter if it's for a minute or 20 minutes. I dance every day because it brings a lot of joy to me. I make sure that I'm in nature every day. I have a tree, a secret tree in a near park in my apartment that I try to go at least 3 to 4 times a week and sit with it, and at least go for a 20-minute walk to be in nature. I think that fulfillment is allowing yourself to feel pleasure, whatever that pleasure is, eating an ice cream or